depending on where you are today. Thanks very much for joining us. The goal of this webinar is to give you ideas that you can share with hiring managers to help them make better hiring decisions, cementing your place as a strategic business partner, as well as improving hiring and retention metrics for your own organisation. My name is Andy Roebling. I'm VP for Business Development with Hays here in Canada. Delighted to be hosting this webinar today. I've been with Hays for 25 years, and during that time, many of the tools that we use to recruit have changed. Many of the techniques we use have evolved. However, one thing hasn't changed, and that is the desire to hire the right people for your business, and that's the focus of today's webinar. To give you a little bit of context about where the information is coming from today, we recently launched a report called Fit and Recruitment, and this is the first in a series of 3 reports giving an in-depth look at how employers can find that elusive best fit, and also how job seekers can decide if they're making the right move. These reports were driven by the consistent message over the last 5 years of salary guide data that we've had for employers telling us that fit is the #1 reason someone doesn't work out, surpassing things like compensation and career progression. So we decided we want to get at the bottom of what fit actually means, and to find out if we could help both employers and job seekers make better hiring and career decisions through better understanding and assessment of fit. The next part of this report is actually going to be released in October, in a few weeks' time, and that's going to look at fit, happiness, and retention. So, overview of today's presentation. This is key findings, as I said, from the report. The first thing is that managers, probably understandably, frequently hire for immediate needs, but can tend to overlook long-term considerations. You know, they need a seat filled today because they've got work that needs doing. And surprisingly, maybe not, 3/4 of hiring managers have let someone go for being a poor fit, and that's the bulk of what we'll be looking at today. As the report explores how important it is to establish must-have and nice-to-have skills and traits to prioritize candidates with the right combination of skills and experience, and also looking at how employers can reduce attrition with better strategic planning and taking a more in-depth look at their recruitment processes. In order to get the right fit, one of the key messages from the report is that we need to define our needs, or do a better job at defining our needs. So that's where we're going to be starting from here. So the first section, when I talk about defining our needs, as a recruiter, I'm no longer surprised when a client changes their job description or person specification partway through a recruitment process. And as a human resources or talent acquisition professional, you can help your managers make better decisions by giving them some very simple questions before they actually start the hiring process and help them define their need. Now, some of this may seem obvious, however, quite often frontline managers aren't the experts in hiring. They're just thinking about needing to fill a role, and as I said, often make decisions based on their immediate need instead of thinking long term. And you can help them change that perspective with something like this job description checklist. So first of all, why are you hiring? Now, more often than not, this is just very simply replacing somebody, but it's not always that obvious. It may be a replacement, but the role's been adapted. It may be expansion for a new team, opening a new office. It's important to understand what the motivation for actually hiring is. What job will the person do? So beyond the job title, what is the list of responsibilities? And for middle to senior positions, what's the mix between leadership and also technical responsibilities? What skill and experience will they need? And we'll talk in a moment about essential and desirable skills, but this would encompass whether we're looking at somebody entry level, whether you need experience, what kind of results they're going to have proven, they've achieved, and potentially use of software and technology. Then, what is their possible career path? Are we looking at a role with high growth potential, or do we work in a relatively flat organisation? And it's important that we hire someone whose ambitions align with the opportunities available, and also that we're not just recruiting for the job that needs to be done today, but for the job that the person could be doing in future. Next, what does success look like for the role? And I think this is often the most important indicator of whether you define the role correctly. If you don't know what success looks like, you've probably not thought through what the job is all about. So how will we measure success, and how does their task list convert to results and achievements? And then lastly, how will their success affect the business? Similar to the question above, but taking a broader look at how their role fits into the organisational needs. And this is particularly useful when it comes to convincing candidates that this is where their future lies. This is actually the contribution that somebody can make to the future success of our business. So a checklist that we found can help just to define the need before we actually start the recruitment process. But why is this important? Why does it actually matter that we get it right at the outset? This graphic shows data from our 2016 salary guide, and very simply that it takes a long time to fill jobs. In candidate short roles, it takes 2 months or more to fill about 70% of the roles, and for all positions, when surveyed, our clients told us that for 37% of all jobs, currently it's taking more than 2 months to fill. That's a long time. For as long as the role is empty, you're likely to see lower productivity, pressure on the workforce, a range of other negative effects. This length of time also puts pressure on the frontline manager to hire someone who might not actually be the best person for the role because they just need the seat filled. It also, within this, takes a fair amount of time for most hiring managers to review resumes to determine who to interview. From our salary guide data, it's taking 45% of people surveyed are taking at least 2 full days to review resumes, which is time for line managers that could be spent on their core tasks. Often, this is because there are a large number of applicants to screen. However, it is also often just as likely to be the case that there is a lack of certainty about what the best fit is for the job. And if you don't know what you're looking for, it's going to take you longer to find it. So recruitment is taking a long time. It's taking up a long time to recruit the positions, and it's taking up a lot of hiring managers' time. And we believe that time invested at the front in the process is going to reduce time during the course of the process. It also, the other impact of recruitment is not just time, but it's also cost. And what happens if you make a bad hire? Now, we asked this in our FIT report, which I've just referenced earlier, and the answer is that hiring the wrong person will cost you a lot of money. 79% of clients that we surveyed said that it actually costs them more than $10,000 to hire the wrong person. It's a lot of money. 38% said that hiring the wrong person, we're talking in terms of cost, it's the actual time that it takes a hiring manager to recruit, it's onboarding people, it's training people. 38% of people said that that actually cost their business over $50,000. And then lastly, a staggering 10% said that it cost a staggering $100,000 when hiring the wrong person. So not getting it right at the outset has a knock-on consequence of getting it wrong at the end of the process after somebody's been hired. And we make a significant investment in staff, so it's worth taking the time to get the right fit, particularly when you look at how much it can cost if you get it wrong. it's too easy to rush a hiring decision from the need to get someone in, because there's a temptation to think that if we have a void, a void must be worse than having the wrong person in the role. But the data here would suggest that that's certainly not the case. And I think if you were to show hiring managers the cost of making a bad hire, look at the time they're spending hiring, then encouraging them to take more time at the start to define their needs would not necessarily fall on deaf ears. Now we're going to look at practical steps in terms of defining your needs. These can be 3 steps summed up very simply as need, fit, and need, want, and fit. Sorry. So firstly, what are the essential skills that you need? It's very easy for a hiring manager to put 20 things on the list, and in the end, we get a wish list that is too specific. And quite frankly, it's impossible to find that person because that person doesn't actually exist. And there is a certain amount of discipline that's required here, but our advice would be to simplify that list to 3 things without which the role just wouldn't be successful. And the key here is that when you get through the screening process, this is how you're going to be filtering resumes. If you know the 3 things you need, then you can very quickly move through reviewing resumes, freeing up more time both for core tasks as a hiring manager or actually spending more time on the interview process itself. Beyond the essentials, we would look at defining the nice-to-haves, or what you actually want. What's going to separate all the people who can do the job from the person you actually want for the job, the skills or experience that will set someone apart. Again, we would recommend limiting this to 3 things rather than an exhaustive list. Again, it requires some discipline to do it, but experience and the data suggest that taking the time and having the discipline to do it up front pays dividends later on in the process. And lastly, but absolutely not least, what behaviours and personality traits will make the person a good fit onto your team or into the organisation. So need, want, and then fit. So we can take a look first at the essentials, so the non-negotiables. Some roles clearly require specific education and qualifications. You can't hire a lawyer who hasn't passed the bar or an electrician who isn't certified. However, there is a word of caution that sometimes people put things down as essential which are unnecessary. Can you hire someone without a certification and support them to get it? Is an undergraduate really necessary? If you're adding something to the essential skills or qualifications, really ask yourself, can they be successful without this? If they can, then you may be unnecessarily limiting your options. Then the core skills, including industry expertise and knowledge. This is the guts of the role. What does the person need to be able to hit the ground running? Again, I'd adjust your answer based on the market. If you want someone with a year's worth of experience, but it takes you 6 months to find them, you could have hired someone with less experience and trained them in the same amount of time. Really drill into your expectations to make sure your essential requirements are truly essential. And then if you're looking at a management role, think about the people management and leadership skills and break those down into the areas that you need for someone who's leading a team in your business today. This should reflect your organization and the department, but also the needs which can change over time. Then we take a look at the nice-to-haves. And this is where you're saying, well, what would be an advantage for success in this role? So we've looked at the things that everyone must have to get above the baseline requirement, but what would be an advantage for success in this role? And that might include specific sector or regional geographic experience, different language skills, or transferable experience from other industries or companies. If you're looking at something like software, it might help if someone's worked with the software you've used in the past or has been trained on a technology that you're due to be implementing. Given that someone has the essentials, what we're looking for now is what will make someone stand out and separate the best fit from the rest. And then coming back to the potential to progress, which we talked about at the outset, does the role have potential to progress? And if so, consider what the candidate would need to continue along that career path. You might want to look at whether someone has got a history of success, the ability to take initiative and solve problems to develop the role they're in, and the ambition and drive to want to reach the next level. And then finally, think about your organization's culture and how the successful candidate's personality fit will affect their success. I've already referred to the first in our series, the first report in our series on workplace fit and how it affects recruitment and workplace satisfaction. So the following data has come from that report, and as I said, our next report will come out in October. So what does fit mean? We define fit within the report with 4 key factors. First is work ethic. Now, it may seem obvious what this means, but the point isn't actually the definition of work ethic, but about what it means in your environment and what a fit looks like. If you were a person with a score of 9 on work ethic, i.e. you worked 12 hours a day, you were a bit of a workaholic, if you joined a company that was a 6, you may get frustrated and leave. You and your employer may say, well, it just wasn't a fit. Equally, a person with a 7 might not succeed in an environment that was a 9 or 10. And as an employer, you're not necessarily looking for a person with the highest work ethic, unless that matches your organization. What you're looking for is for someone with the work ethic for your team or for your role. Then social behavior, and what we mean here is how people behave and interact at work. Not necessarily how they behave at a social event, although that could actually be part of your assessment of their fit. So, for example, is your workplace very casual and familiar? Do people dress casually, sit around on beanbags? If so, the person who joins who is very formal, wears a 3-piece suit, may be out of place. Also, the person who joins and thinks it's okay to drop into the boss's office for a chat may fit perfectly, or they may be making a terrible mistake. Again, you're not looking for the person with the highest score, you're looking for a match with your own organization. Conformity is the measure of how much you want your employee to follow the rules or to figure them out for themselves. You may think you want someone with initiative, but you may also get very upset when people don't do it the way we've always done it around here. Again, neither is correct. You just need to know what will work in your environment. And then finally, team versus individual. Are you looking for a person who will be happy to do their part of the work, but their work doesn't depend on interacting, cooperating with other people? You may think you want a team player, but at the same time you may be annoyed when the person won't stop interacting with everyone and just focus on their own work. Again, neither is correct. You just need a match between what you really want and what the person really is. And we found that virtually all fit-related reasons fall into one of these 4 categories. For your own organization, for your own team, there will be outliers. No one is going to claim you can have a 100% guarantee of success, but most people would take a score of 80% or more. Now we're going to take a quick look, a little bit more in depth about the findings from our fit report. If you are interested, you can order a copy from our website, hayes.ca/fit. Now, looking at our professional population here in Canada, we wanted to know if people felt as though they fit into their current organization. And rather shockingly, 2/3 of respondents didn't feel that they actually fit within their current working team's culture. And also roughly the same number didn't feel as though they fit in with their organization's defined fit. Something to note is the distinction between the company fit, the organization fit, and the working team. The company's defined fit is what the senior leadership want for the company overall. But as hiring managers, we need to understand the nuances between the need for an organization's culture versus the culture or fit of your own team. For example, a sales organization will have a very clear office culture. They want the majority of their staff. However, the finance director for that same sales business knows their payroll team has a different working culture to the overall business tone. And as a result, what they're looking for in terms of fit is different to your sales managers. So one size doesn't fit all. Still, whether it's the distinction between the team culture and the organization's culture, that is an astonishing number of people who don't feel they actually fit into their team or organization's culture. However, although it looks like most people we surveyed felt that they don't have a fit, most do recognize the importance of fit. And we have 86% of people saying that having a defined personal fit, i.e. knowing what type of work environment is the best fit for them, is important for achieving their career goals. But only 1/3 said they have figured out what their ideal fit is. And if the majority of us don't know what our ideal working fit is, then it's no wonder that so many of us are working either in a team or organisation that is not a fit. We understand we need fit to achieve success, but we don't seem to be making strides in finding out what that fit actually is. So, as I said, we recognise the importance of fit, but are we doing anything about it? And the answer is apparently no, not a huge amount. 37% of candidates that we surveyed said they had accepted a job they knew they weren't a fit for. So this is before actually joining the organisation. They had a sense, they had an understanding from what they knew that they weren't a fit. And of those, 78% no longer work for that organisation. So that's a significant amount of people going in knowing that they weren't a fit, and a very high percentage of people for whom that didn't work out. Similarly, we have 49% of employers, who, again, significant amount, have hired someone that they knew wasn't a fit for their team, company culture, and of those, 74% said that person no longer works for the organisation. So we believe that this is significant data to represent, to underscore the need for getting the right fit, because there are a lot of people making decisions even though they know they're not the right fit and the moves aren't working out, and all the companies hiring people who they think actually not the right fit, but they're making an expedient hiring decision who then don't work out. So why is this a problem? Well, the previous slide we showed about the actual financial cost of making the wrong hire is significant enough. But how else does the wrong fit negatively impact upon a team? We had, from the report, 75% say the wrong fit had a negative impact on staff morale. 65% say that hiring the wrong fit decreased productivity, and 48% said that the wrong fit increased inefficiencies in the business. So all issues that impact the bottom line, business activity, and also potentially retention as well. So there's a significant cost to any business in hiring the wrong person. Interestingly, 45% of employers don't involve their team in hiring decisions, and that means for almost half of new hires, you have no insight into how someone's going to interact with the team until the day they start. Now, clearly for some roles, team interaction is less important than others, but there are a significant amount of roles where team interaction is a critical element of fit. The majority of hiring managers utilize traditional methods, screening methods, reviewing a resume, conducting one or multiple interviews. However, activities such as involving the team or other screening methods such as psychometric testing or in-house assessment centres, all activities that can take more time, are not widely carried out, even though they are methods that can really help you to get to know the person and determine their fit. So our advice for any business would be to look at tools that are available to them, or tools that can be available to them, to help them determine the right fit for their business and avoid some of these costs or the impacts to their business of making the wrong hire. And lastly, we're going to take a look at sort of practical example of how you can go through this process with a frontline manager to make sure they're making the best hiring decision. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to look at here at Hayes, when we hire a new consultant for one of our teams, what taking a hiring manager through a checklist of defining their needs might look like. So why are you hiring? Well, we're hiring for a new consultant. We're creating a new role in response to an increased demand in the financial services sector here in Toronto. What is the person going to do? Well, we do have pretty clearly defined roles. They tend not to change much depending on where someone is situated in the business, and we're confident that the role is well defined. So move on to the skills and experience they need. We know in order to be successful, people need to be able to build relationships with employees and candidates. Part of their role is going to be the experience we're going to be looking for is their ability to achieve targets. What is their possible career path? We have a very clearly defined career path, and promotion is transparent and based on meeting specific targets, with the options to move into business or people management roles depending on individual preference and aptitude. What does success look like for the role? Driving productivity and results, making successful placements, and meeting and exceeding targets. And as well as keeping us as a business in check so we're clear on what we're trying to achieve, this also helps manage people's expectations before and also after they join our business. So this is what it's going to look like if you're successful, and people have a very clear understanding of that. And then lastly, how will their success affect the overall business? It will enable our business to have higher productivity and also to improve the level of service that we're delivering to our customers. Then we would look at the skills from an essential, from a nice to have, and from a fit point of view, so need, want, and fit. The essential skills we're looking for, previous recruitment experience, sectoral discipline that they've recruited in is not necessarily crucial. We'll come on to that. They must have a proven ability to meet targets, and it's essential that they have strong communication and rapport building skills. Once people have that baseline, this is what we'd want, the nice to have. So what will differentiate people from the rest? If they have experience in the banking and financial services sector, that's a nice to have. If they have a degree, again, it's something we'd want but not essential. And then also GTA market knowledge, so understanding the environment that they're coming into. From an ideal fit point of view, they have to be ambitious and results-driven. They have to be comfortable in a relatively informal and relaxed social environment. And also they have to be able to work independently, but also have that balance of being able to work on a team. So that's how we might take a hiring manager here at Hayes through a process of establishing their needs and then linking that to the person's specification when we actually go to market. Once your frontline manager has completed a process like this, then it enables you to use it to make the hiring process more efficient. And breaking down the job description between essential and desirable skills is going to be key to attracting the best candidates for the role. And then also describing the environment and culture that somebody's going to work in will help you to make a good fit. Obviously, people will make their own assessment, but if you're very clear as to the culture you want to recruit for, you're more likely to find the people you want to attract. Then, in terms of screening, some businesses will use, depending on the volumes, they'll be using software to review resumes. But most businesses will be doing this manually, the old-fashioned way. But it's important that we're quite disciplined about discarding resumes without the key skills. Clearly, you run the risk of missing out people who haven't got the best written resume, but in reality, the better people will have identified the skills they need for the job and should be highlighting those in an application. So being disciplined will help you more efficiently determine which applications should progress to the next stage. And then lastly, which I touched on previously, thinking about using different tools and techniques that can help you determine the right fit. Yes, you've reviewed the resume, yes, you've conducted an interview, but are there other things in terms of either skills, more likely psychometric testing, assessment center, things that can involve the team in the interview and selection process that will help you get a better chance of making the right fit? So to finish, our recommendations, create a structured process. This, as we said at the outset, is looking at how, as human resources or talent acquisition professionals, you can support frontline managers and actually giving them a toolkit. So asking them to identify the 3 must-have and nice-to-have requirements rather than allowing them the luxury of having a wish list that's got 20 different things on it. Reviewing your ideal organizational and team fit, and if people are interested in the back of the fit report that I've referenced during the course of this webinar, there is actually an exercise that you can take hiring managers through to help them identify what makes the right match for their teams. And then lastly, outlining the essentials, nice to have, and also the fit in your advertising to get the highest quality responses. And then applying your findings, being disciplined about resume review, but also in your screening for the best hiring decision as well. But the most important aspect we found is taking the time up front. The screening process is critical, but if you get it right at the outset, you're much more likely to create both an efficient and an effective recruitment process for making the best hire. That concludes the webinar for today. Thank you very much for dialing in. I hope you found it useful. And as I said, there is a copy of our fit report which you can request on hayes.ca. The presentation will be available to watch again on our website or on our YouTube channel tomorrow morning. And we have the chat function open, and I'm just going to see whether we've got any questions. We've got a few minutes for any questions that we might have. So just taking, we got 2 or 3 questions that have come through. The first one, we have set job descriptions for the majority of our roles. Is this sufficient in terms of defining our needs, or do I have to set it on the basis of the kind of framework that you've covered in the webinar today? We would recommend that before any hire, you review all your job descriptions to ensure they're actually fit for purpose and up to date. If you're happy that your job description meets the current hiring need, you're clear on why you're hiring, and also that it meets the measures of success, then that's really where you need to be following this framework. So there's no imperative to change your job description, but we would suggest that you're looking at your current job descriptions and saying, are they fit for the job that we need to recruit now? Do they actually meet the needs of the business? And can we be clear as to the measures of success that it's going to meet? Next question. I do most of my hiring from the GTA, but jobs are across Canada and different offices have different cultures. How would you change job ads to get the right person for each office? Really good question. We deal with a number of clients who recruit for similar roles in different parts of the country. And I would suggest that if a different office requires a different fit, yes, adapting a job ad would be beneficial, but you probably want to focus more on the candidate screening rather than the advert itself. Certainly if the role responsibilities are the same, or if the must-have and nice-to-haves in terms of key skills and experience are the same, then fine. If they're different, then you should change them. And certainly if the office has a distinct culture, then being clear about that in the advert will be beneficial. However, it's really the screening process where you can make the biggest difference to allow for the same job in a different location. And again, involving the local team, not just the hiring manager, but also the local team, if it genuinely has a different culture, I would suggest would be as important in hiring the right person as much as it would be actually changing the job advert. A couple more questions. We're in a very dynamic business with lots of changes expected in the next year or so. How can I assess the must-haves and fit when that could change? It's a really good question because not many businesses work in a completely stable environment year in, year out. And I think here is where you could want to spend more time looking at what success is going to look like in the role, and also how success in that role impacts the organisation. So if change is going to be driven by merger, acquisition, restructuring, new products, new services, if you have some sense of how your business is likely to change, even though you don't know exactly what that's going to look like, then how you measure success might change. So if you can understand what the business is going to need to do to achieve success, this will impact on what individuals are going to need to do in their roles to be successful, and that's really what I think you'd want to be looking at. So the advice would be trying to understand what success is going to look like, and then adapting your recruitment accordingly. And there's another question, which probably a similar answer, a slightly different question, is we have a revolving door for one role, possibly because we reuse the same job ad. What are the first steps for reviewing that role, and how can I figure out the necessities versus the nice-to-haves of a role that's existed for over 4 years? And the advice there, I think, would be to continue to review the job description, because things do change. The role you recruited 6 months ago may not be the role that you're recruiting now. So you need to understand whether the job is actually the same job. But then also understanding what success looks like in the job, because again, what was successful 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago may not now be the measure of success now. So I think if you can be really clear on what success looks like, to suit the business needs now and in the future, then you're much more likely to be able to figure out the necessities and the nice-to-haves, even though you've recruited the role on multiple occasions. So just one more question, which is the logistical question: how do we get a copy of the presentation? The recording of this webinar will be available on our website and YouTube later today. I think we're just done for time now. If you have any more questions, feel free to email them to andy.robling@hayes.com. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate you joining us today.